Madam President, last week President Trump was in Europe. He was meeting with other NATO leaders. One of the major issues that he raised was the need to bolster energy security throughout NATO. He specifically talked about a natural gas pipeline that the Russians are building between Russia and Germany. It's called the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And I've been talking about this pipeline for years, Madam President. President Trump was absolutely right to bring up this important subject. Now, here's how the Boston Herald put it in an editorial over the weekend. It said, Trump's testy, tough talk to NATO on point. Absolutely on point, the president's tough talk. The president pointed out that Germany relies on natural gas for a substantial amount of its energy needs. More than half of Germany's natural gas imports come from Russia. With this new pipeline, Germany will actually increase its dependence on Russian gas. Russia will have more of an influence on Germany. Germany and other countries are members of NATO, and the reason that they are members of NATO is to protect themselves against Russian aggression. So why would they want to become more dependent on Russia if you're Germany, when you're joining NATO and have been a member of NATO for years, to protect against Russian aggression? So it does seem that Germany has turned around now and given Russia influence over its energy security. President Trump pointed out how strange it seems. I think it seems strange to other members of NATO, and it seems strange to people all across the country. No one who understands the facts can say that President Trump is wrong. President Trump is right. His tough talk to NATO was on point. Even the Obama administration knew it. The rest of NATO knows it. Even Germany knows it. When one country allows another aggressive, opportunistic country like Russia to have that kind of influence over its energy security, I believe it's asking for trouble. Germany seems to be betting that increasing its economic ties to the Kremlin will have no effect on the political manipulations that Russia wants to play on Europe. I think it's a sucker's bet. Energy is national security. Energy security is national security. Energy security is called the master resource for a reason. It powers our country. It powers our economies. It's an instrument of power. It's a force multiplier. It's important for the United States. And it's important for our allies around the world to have that correct understanding of energy and the impact that it has globally as a geopolitical weapon. We've seen Russia in the past use its natural gas as a geopolitical weapon. Russia threatens other countries. It extorts money from them. It bullies them. Russians then can tell their customers, do what we say, or we turn off the tap and we shut off your gas. They've done it in the past. You know, it also means a lot of money going from our NATO allies straight into the Kremlin's pockets. That's money that they could be using instead to fund aggression in Europe and other parts of the world. I mean, that's what Russia wants to do with the money if they get that money from Germany, from the energy. They use the money against us and against our NATO allies. Well, this new pipeline, I believe, was all the desires of the Russian people, and specifically of Vladimir Putin, to put our NATO allies much more under Russia's control. With the new pipeline, Russia is seeking to make Germany and the rest of Europe even more dependent, even more susceptible to this kind of Russian coercion. The Wall Street Journal had an editorial on the subject last week. They wrote that the embarrassment for Berlin and for NATO is that Germany is so happy to help Vladimir Putin execute the plan. That, to me, that's the embarrassment for Berlin and the embarrassment for NATO. They said usually hostages need to be taken instead of volunteering. But that's what Germany is doing right now, volunteering to be a hostage of Russia. That's exactly right. Europe needs new energy security, and a new energy source. They need diversity. That's what the European Union needs, diversity in both the types of energy, that's what our NATO allies need, diversity in the types of energy that they use and in where they get their energy from. That's how countries ensure that their own long-term economic health and independence is sound. Russia has a right to compete in the world market for energy. The trouble starts when Russia gets so much of the market in some of these European countries that they are becoming a monopoly in terms of the way they act. Russia is the largest supplier of natural gas to Europe, and across Europe, nearly 40% of the natural gas imports come from Russia. So Russia has incredible control. In some countries, it's virtually 100%. Countries like Germany should be reducing the amount of natural gas that they buy from Russia, not increasing it. But that's what this pipeline, this Nord Stream 2 pipeline between Russia and Germany do. It increases the amount of natural gas that Germany will be buying from Russia. Germany should absolutely reject the Nord Stream 2 pipeline as part of their reduction on the dependence of Russia. That would help shrink the influence and the threat that Russia continually poses to our NATO allies. It would also help our other allies in the region, because right now a lot of Russian gas travels through pipelines that cross Ukraine and other countries into Central Europe. Well, these countries make money from the gas crossing their territory, and they get a lot of their energy through these pipelines as well. But remember, Russia has invaded parts of eastern Ukraine. Russia has taken over Crimea. If Russia has their other new pipeline to help export its natural gas, it can just shut off the revenue from 4 countries like the Ukraine. It can shut off their energy completely. And remember, one of the things that President Trump has done, which I think has been helpful and I've been calling for years during the Obama administration, is actually providing lethal weapons to Ukraine to deal with the incursions coming from Russia to eastern Ukraine. You know, Vladimir Putin actually cut off natural gas supplies to Ukraine in 2006 and in 2009 and 2014. He invaded Ukraine. He annexed Crimea in part to cut off access to the natural gas and oil resources. It's this pattern that Vladimir Putin has of using energy as a weapon. And the best defense against this weapon is for these countries in Europe to have the kind of energy diversity and energy security that I've recommended. So in March, I wrote a letter to the Treasury and State Departments encouraging the Trump administration to look at ways to stop the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's what we really need to do, stop the construction of the pipeline. It was a bipartisan effort. 39 senators, both parties, signed on to the letter to express our concerns to President Trump about what was happening between Russia and Germany. So today, I take the next concrete step and introduce legislation to do 4 very important things. First, the legislation directs our representatives at NATO to work to achieve energy security for our partners throughout Europe and Eurasia. Second, it calls for a comprehensive strategy that involves increasing American energy exports to these countries that are being held hostage by Russia. Third, it requires the Energy Secretary to speed up approvals of American natural gas exports to our NATO allies and other countries. And finally, it authorizes mandatory U.S. sanctions on the development of Russian energy pipelines like Nord Stream 2. It's in the national security interests of our country to help our allies reduce their dependence on Russian energy. Now, where those countries don't see it for themselves, we need to show them how important it is for their own security. Our NATO alliance is strong. A robust energy security strategy will make it even stronger. When Vladimir Putin looks at natural gas, he doesn't think natural gas. He thinks politics, he thinks money, and he thinks power, because that's how he equates the energy that he supplies to these countries that they have become so dependent on. Money, power, and politics. So Germany and other countries in Europe and NATO should be doing all they can to diversify their sources of energy so they can help reduce the threat that Russia poses to themselves. The United States should do all that we can by exporting our abundant natural gas to our allies as quickly as possible. We have more than enough natural gas to meet our own needs and to export to our friends around the world. We can boost the security of our NATO allies and our friends around the world, and we should be doing it. We can do it through a peaceful process, of peaceful means, without spending tax dollars, while at the same time growing our American economy with the production of American energy. You know, President Trump, when he came to office, said it's no longer about energy security, or energy independence. It's about energy dominance. And what we have been blessed with in this country, and the amount of energy that we have and the resources that we have an opportunity and I believe an obligation to use that energy wisely, productively. Vladimir Putin thinks about energy as money and as power and as politics. And I think that what we need to do with the resources that we have, as I'm introducing in this legislation today, is a very common sense approach. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.